excited to have this time together and want to thank our participating alumni panel. We had a wonderful kind of get to know each other, get to catch up a little while ago, which was really wonderful. And Mark, I think, really hit it on the head when he said we should have recorded that first session, because it was free flowing and just a really exciting time. So hopefully we'll capture a bit of that spirit today. But let me introduce you to our three guests. Maria Calandra received her M.F.A. from Cornell in 2006. And the subject of Maria's work really involves focusing on really engaging with the artwork and studios of her contemporaries, really through the work of her drawings. And through a combination of both formal technique and social media, she takes a conceptual and traditional look at drawings as a medium. And Maria visits artists in their studios. She spends an entire day with them and really immerses herself in their work, and then draws their spaces, talks with them about their practice and life as a working, living artist. And then she presents that experience really through an art blog called Pencil in the Studio, which incorporates writing, photography, her original drawings. And so far she's completed 44, and probably she'll tell us how many more she's done since then, but we're really excited to have Maria here. Her work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Sun, Huffington Post, and she hopes to someday be able to assemble all of that work into a book that will not only showcase the drawings and the writings, but also act as an anthropological record of current day artists, both in New York City and beyond. So really inspiring work, and really glad to have you with us today, Maria. Our second guest is Jennifer Cecere, and she did her B.F.A. at Cornell and graduated in 1973. So she's got a really amazing trajectory. This is a time period that I'm quite fond of, especially living and being in New York City in the 70s, when places like Soho were just, you know, crackling with lots and lots of studios and impromptu setups, and you know, the likes of Gordon Clark and others who are running around doing all kinds of outrageous stuff. So really an incredible time. So Jennifer is an artist based in New York City, and her work is very, very expansive, with galleries, public spaces, working with corporations. She's also had a chance to work with some of the most distinguished New York City cultural organizations, as well as the Department of Parks and Recreation, where you know, that's been a real canvas for a lot of public art, but also working with the Guggenheim, Pratt Institute, really important work at the Socrates Sculpture Park in Astoria, Queens, MoMA PS1, Cooper Hewitt, and many others, and also beyond New York City, work in Cleveland as well as in California. So Jennifer's goal is to make visible local history by providing symbols of comfort and community, essentially transforming what is often banal experience into one with humanity and wit. So again, Jennifer, really glad to have you here and your perspective, and we look forward to hearing some of the tales of the past. You've really seen an amazing arc of art, which is, you know, in that 40+ year arc, just a really radical transformation of what's happened. Our third guest is Mark Parsons, who did his M.F.A. At Cornell and graduated in '98. And Mark is currently the director of production technologies and an adjunct faculty member at Pratt Institute School of Architecture. He previously has taught at Hunter College and was a principal and senior designer at Haiti Soft House. Mark has exhibited his work at the United Nations, the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, the Provincetown Art Museum, the New Bedford Art Museum, and numerous private galleries in New York City and elsewhere. His work ranges from large sculpture to printmaking, as well as large wall drawings. He is currently working on a sculpture series called Cartography Pop with the New York Department of Transportation. And Mark, I'm sure you've got another half dozen or more items. I've been to your studio. There's like everything in process, so as well as finished work. So great to have you here, and wonderful. I know your family's with us. I'm hoping they're going to entertain us a little bit too. So
I hope they don't.
Great to have everyone here. So why don't we launch off? I thought, you know, we're going to encourage people to submit questions or raise their hand. But I did want to start off kind of maybe at that transition when you left Cornell, and the question I have for each of you, and why don't we go back in the order, Maria, Jennifer, and then to Mark. And the question I have for you is, what are some of the unique skills and talents that you leveraged when seeking opportunities after graduation? Because I think there's a lot of influences from Cornell, a lot of things that we learn, but we have to rely on a few to get ourselves going. And I was really curious about what might have been the spark or the thing that really helped you get that kind of push off the wall, so to speak, if we were swimming and pushing off the wall for a little bit of a head start. What was it that Cornell kind of helped you get going that allowed you to really get to where you are today?
Well, actually, the woman who I first worked for when I moved to New York City was a visiting artist at Cornell, Diana Cooper. So while she was a visiting artist in her studio there, I started assisting her the summer after I graduated in Ithaca. So I stayed a summer, assisted her in her studio there, and then my first job in New York City was also as her assistant. So she was wonderful and generous and said, hey, look, keep working for me. And she also let me, because she had recently moved out of her artist loft where she was making her work, she let me move in there and she didn't ask for rent. So it was really like, ask for a better, that was really directly from Cornell, because I met her as she was teaching at Cornell and she was on my committee as well. So she let me live in her place for 3 months, I think, working in her studio and then also assisting her. I'd go to her other apartment and assist her and work out of the studio. So without that kind of like super direct support from another woman artist, I don't know how I would have, and also from Cornell, I can't imagine the steps I would have taken moving to New York City. It was kind of very special, I think. So, and in that way also introduced me to other artists, and I was living in Williamsburg in her studio at the time, and this was in 2006. So that was my beginning in New York.
That sounds incredible. Wow. Well, the power of human relationships right there.
Exactly.
Like clearing the road.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Jennifer, how about you in the 70s? Different world.
It's a somewhat similar story. I came to New York and a friend of mine had found a loft on Franklin Street. And so I was staying with her and walked around and found the loft that I still live in.
Oh, wow.
And then another friend who also went to Cornell was working for a printer. And they were printing these invitations for openings, and one was for this opening at the Whitney. So we got these invitations from the printer and went to this opening. And met some other people from Cornell that I'd gone to school with, fine artsies. And they were the ones who turned me on to doing textile design. I needed to make money, and they said, oh, we're doing these little paintings on paper, and you know, we'll teach you how to do repeats, and you can do this, and it's not a big deal, and we're selling them for quite a bit of money. So I did that, and they were quite successful for about 6 months, you know, until the fashion changed. But in the meantime, then my work changed, and that really propelled me to start doing the work that I'm kind of known for. You know, interested in fabrics and laces and textiles, women's work, and the whole pattern and decoration movement, which was sort of like getting going in the early 70s. So it was seminal. What can I tell you? And it was not just fine arts, these architects too. Architect friends at the time, you know, they actually were the ones who encouraged me, one guy in particular, to start moving to 3 dimensions. And at Cornell, I hated sculpture. Absolutely hated it. Couldn't stand the teacher and was miserable. And I found it really funny that when I got the first gallery I was in, Robert Friedis, he only showed sculpture and photography. So you like never know. So, and I still had a problem when I showed Socrates sculpture. You know, I show, I make objects, but I don't know, I still have this block about it. So yeah, Cornell. Stay close to your friends and keep in touch. And Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how
Good things will happen.
Things will happen.
Yeah.
You know, that old boy network, they said, but it was true. It's true. It's actually
Wow.
true.
Well, that's what a great story. Well, Mark, how about you? I know you've also done some miles and seen some things.
I have indeed. Can you please close that door? I'm presenting right now. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, in stark contrast to what Jennifer and Maria just told you, I was naive in the way I came to New York after my graduate degree at Cornell. And I came to the city and I really wanted to do it myself. I'm an independent person. It's in my genetics. And I thought, you know, I'm going to get there on the merit of my work. And it was the hardest time of my life. And it's because I didn't pick up the phone. I didn't call people. I didn't do things through the connections that I had at the time. I really didn't. And it's super naive. And I was not a young person then. It was after graduate school. It was after having sailed around the world. But I came to New York and thought, I'm going to grind this thing out. And it's going to, you know, like I'm going to sink or swim based on the quality of my work that I'm creating in studio. And that was a really, really hard time. And the link that changed it was actually by a mistake connecting with an artist that I didn't know previously who lived in Williamsburg, was a Cornellian, and we started working together. And, you know, I was helping him do some stuff which leveraged my old background, which was carpentry. And, you know, that was my kind of entry into building a network. And finding my first studio and making work. So, you know, and it took, and I'm still made of the same stuff, right? You know, I'm still independent. I still kind of think that way, but it is really, I mean, that's the most profound thing that I can, it's the simplest thing. And everybody can tell you this, but like, I needed to learn it for myself, that the power of the people that you meet to connect you is how you get the job, it's how you get into the gallery, it's how you get the opportunity, it's how you get the studio, it's kind of how you make the connections to do everything, because what's on paper does not matter. It's the person to person, eye to eye connection that matters with all of this. So please try and skip the mistakes that I made into, you know, stepping into the world of art after school.
Wow. Now, there's some contrast. But heroic, certainly, Mark. You were there with that high integrity. You're like, I'm going to do it on my own. It's a tough town to do that in.
Yeah.
This is not the time to do that. One should never do that. I'm sharing that with you, not because I'm putting it at that should not be the way you do it. I'm telling you it was a tremendous mistake for me. I was really stubborn about that. And, you know, today I can look at my career and say, wow, this really worked, but it's not because I started that way.
Yeah, well, great story. Just thinking a little bit about the student's perspective, I want to throw this question out as it relates to what are some of the, say, proactive steps that you would each recommend for the undergraduates and even some of the graduate M.F.A. students to do at this time to prepare and help kind of think about their graduation? I know that some of the folks that will be watching this or joining us today are going to be thinking about graduation in May. And there's still a little bit of time for them to be able to, you know, really work with Marjorie and Brooke and myself in New York and others in the Cornell community. But what would you might say to them about kind of preparing for that life after Cornell, and maybe some things, maybe there's some communication or things that might help them kind of get prepared and maybe be able to do that at a slightly depressurized world of Cornell where you can think a little bit more and plan. But again, yeah, what would your best advice be to help them get ready for graduation and beyond? And why don't we go back, Maria, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm thinking back on graduating from graduate school, and I took quite a break in between. So I had a different approach to life, but a big priority for me right away was figuring out a way to work and pay my rent. And also have a steady studio practice, because I knew that the most important thing was to continue to work in the studio even if I didn't have anything else. Like, it was as important as feeding myself. So I really feel like, you know, if you're graduating with an art degree, it's important to figure out, in my opinion, a job you can have that will feed your studio practice and enable you to continue it no matter what. Because to me, it seemed like there was no point in having gotten an M.F.A, putting all of my life into art without continuing as hard as ever to be working in my studio. So I would say, and I didn't have a space for the first couple of years. And then I had a studio, and then I went back to working in my apartment, and I obviously visit studios as an artist. To figuring out something you can do that continues to support your work, because that always has to be there. As importantly, whether or not it's making you money. That's what I think is really, really vital to continuing as an artist. And who knows when you'll be able to live off of your artwork, if ever. But you have to keep up that practice. You can't give up on that part.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Jennifer, let's go over to you.
Well, a couple things. I agree with all of that. I think that is a key thing you have to sort of figure out. But it doesn't have to be a hard and fast and set one. It will change probably. You should be open to opportunities. I mean, I did a variety of different things. I did a temporary exhibition for the Cooper Hewitt. I developed a product I sold to an art supply manufacturer. I tried very hard not to have a regular job.
Yeah.
And it wasn't till much later that I decided I would teach as to have a sort of basic income. But everybody sort of has an individual path for that. But it doesn't have to be whatever you decide will be, this is going to be it.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that I think it's really important to get your little narrative down. Like when somebody asks you, what kind of work do you do, or what it's about? You got to have your little elevator pitch ready to go. Like, oh, well, I don't know, I'm kind of a painter, whatever. This kind of took me a really long time to figure out, but you really need to do this. Get that down. You should be prepared. You should have some visual representations of your work, or a website, or someplace where people can look. Maybe it's just Instagram. You can say, here's my work. I'm concerned with feminist issues and whatever. You have to be able to do that. And I don't think I really knew that. I didn't think about that. I didn't really know that. But that is really important. Now, if you come to New York, there's an organization called the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. And they were very helpful to me early on, LMCC, and they give grants, they have workshops, and I did a professional development with them that was funded or organized by Creative Capital, which I don't know if you're familiar with that organization. And it was like a 5-day intensive boot camp. And we had to sort of, it was like we were in business. You had to get up and give your pitch and talk about your work. And it actually really helped. And it was also, those things are fabulous networking events, because you meet other artists and you make new friends and new connections. So I would recommend that. But you got to get your elevator pitch.
Jennifer, I totally agree with that. And that's that I really share with students. And I think that's one of the things that the B.F.A students kind of really shirk away from, because they really associate it with planners.
Right.
And that's much more professional. But I think it really is relevant to all of the programs. And if you're trying to find work, you need that elevator pitch. So to sell yourself.
Well, everybody's really busy. Nobody wants to pay that. Is not that interested in anything really. So you have to be interesting. I mean, they're not going to think about you unless you're somehow whatever.
Great, Mark.
So that's great advice you just heard from Maria and Jennifer. So I'll just add something to that, and it is that I think the advice I would have given myself would be to look at definitions of success and recognize that there are many different ways to define success, in that the education process, we all entered art school or design or architecture, whatever, with one concept, and And then we left with another one 4 years later, or even in graduate school 2 years later. It changes, right? So you should look inward at what success might mean to you, but you should also talk to your faculty about that, and you should talk to professionals who are not your faculty. That's really important. Professionals who are not your faculty about what success means to them, and maybe what it meant to them when they left school or 10 years ago or something like that. So you can see how that has changed for everybody. And having a kind of goal and knowing that it's maybe a goal that can move in time is really helpful in the difficult decision making that has to happen when you come to a place like New York City. And that's the other thing. I think I've been sort of assuming that everybody we're talking to is envisioning coming to New York City afterwards. And maybe that's the case, Bob. I don't know if this is a subset, but
high percentage,
the other
yes.
thing is the way you prepare. Okay, so you need to know where you're going, right? So if you're going to go to the Midwest or to California, there's going to be a little bit of a difference in the way you prepare to go to those places than if you come to New York City. And it is very geographically specific. So connect with people who are in those areas that are your destination to get the advice about kind of what success means for them, who they should meet, and what organizations like the ones Jennifer just mentioned that are so critical in the networking that you're going to do in those places.
Yeah. And I think given the range of different kind of professional or cultural organizations, Marjorie has put together a list building off of our last conversation, so we'll be able to share that with everyone a little later. But there's certainly, when you think about the range of cultural organizations in New York City, it feels like almost everyone's represented across the kind of artistic spectrum. So I think there is that opportunity to find a home here, not dissimilar to what you find in, say, hospitality or entertainment or food and cuisine. New York City seems to have plenty of diversity to cover everything. So I would be surprised if some of the students didn't see New York City as at least a starting point to kind of find their way. And I know with our New York City program, they really are able to kind of immerse themselves in the culture of the art industry in New York City at an early age, typically as sophomores, and then gives them a number of years to kind of find their place before they graduate. But I was going to say, just shifting a little bit to where we are with COVID-19, it's had such a dramatic impact even as to what we're doing today with the idea of a Zoom interface. Are there other newer strategies that you're using to communicate with your audience or patrons or prospective collaborators? How is that kind of manifest today? I know we briefly mentioned about Instagram as being the portal for some people and websites and blogs, but just curious how each of you are kind of working through the COVID-19 challenges, which might also shed some light on how we're going to continue to function despite some of the barriers. And Maria, we'll come back to you again. Sorry, I think that rhythm is nice if you don't mind.
No problem. Well, one thing that comes to mind is that for several years I've been in a artist group, a women's artist group of about 8 women, and we visit each other's studios once a month. And so this is something that's been very important in my life because we support each other and have conversations. And so obviously that came to a halt because we could no longer go to studios. But as soon as we all had to start staying inside, we would have these Zoom conversations once a week. And at first it was very much about COVID. And now we're getting back to doing the studio visits. So we had our first one last week, and it was, we had one of the women who had finished a new body of work and has a show coming in February, put her work up for us to talk about over Zoom. And it didn't last as long as it usually does, and there wasn't as much food and festivity, but we were really able to get back to having a conversation about art and art making. So I think like with everything happening and as difficult as it is, to still be able to talk about what you're making in your studio is so important to keep our health as artists alive during all of this. And one other thing I didn't mention before was that another one of the painters in my program, Eric Denbregen, and I stayed very close after Cornell, and we're actually married now and share a studio. So that was another like Cornell Connect, I guess. So I'm lucky to have had an artist with me during COVID, working side by side the whole time and looking at each other's work, as we have been for 15 years. And we're married. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I'm able to have a constant conversation, but I think it's important to show people your work over Zoom. And so you have that personal like eye contact, and you can point to parts of your paintings and really still talk about it like you would having somebody in your studio. I've even considered bringing my paintings outside so that my friends can see them, because it's important to keep that part alive. It can't just be looking at each other's work over Instagram, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think we need the actual conversations. So that would be, I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Yeah, because we're all trying to come up with ways to, function and still do the things that we really are core elements of our practice.
Yeah, and we were very able to do the studio visit. The woman who put up her paintings had done detail shots, so we could even look in at her work instead of, like you would if you approached a painting. So it wasn't just the painting from far away in a photograph, but many details in order for us to discuss the work. So that's
really helpful. Thank you. Yeah. Jennifer?
I've actually gone back to snail mail. And I've been sending things, notes and books that I'm in and little brochures and things to various people as they come out via snail mail. And so there's something to be said for it, I have to say, especially with older collector types. They like that. And as far as Zooming, I did a presentation for Savannah College of Art in my studio about my work. And I've had a few friends over, and but pretty much I have to say I've been just working. Me working, that's it, that's about it. Mm-hmm. During this time, which actually, frankly, I don't mind. Because that's the way I work. I sort of have this life where I work, and then I'll go out to dinner or something. That's it.
Great,
so I need lots of time uninterrupted.
So COVID-19 is actually kind of just
an
extension of your normal work.
Yeah, especially in the beginning, because I just stayed in my loft in New York. And I have a dog, and all I did was walk the dog and order in food and work. And art supplies. I ordered in food, art supplies, and work. And I watched movies and read books at night, and would talk on the phone a little bit. But I got a tremendous amount of work done. And now I'm out at my summer place where I'm not getting quite as much work done. But I needed to get out of the loft because I was like going a little bananas.
Yeah.
So, and to be outside and not wear a mask.
Yeah, right. Get outdoors a little bit. No,
that's
great.
Well, it's just my personal way of dealing with this. But the book from the exhibition that was in Europe has come out, and I got some. So I sent them to people as gifts who had helped me along the way or been interested.
That's great. Good.
So that's a thing you can do.
Yeah. And Mark, how about you? I know you've got so much going on.
Yeah, I think the distinction, I think when so early on in the career, it's like, I've got to kind of get a kind of gallery. I've got to get a studio. I've got to get an apartment. I've got to get kind of my crew. It's like it's a get. Like I've got to acquire things kind of mentality almost. Mm-hmm. Looking back retroactively, and now I'm way more like I got to give. Like is so much more effective to think in the give mode than it is the get mode, like the acquisition collection mode. It's necessary to do some of that, but this is largely subjective maybe, but for me, like I just prefer to be like, okay, well, like I'm gonna give a party. Bob didn't mention this. I'm the founder and executive director of the Consortium for Research in Robotics in the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Yeah.
I bring in artists all the time, artists from all over the world, dancers, the American Operatic Company, Ben Snell, like really cool artists that are doing all kinds of crazy things. And all I want to do is give somebody else a leg up. And like, what we kind of it is so satisfying. There's no immediate return on investment when you do that. It's like artists are businesses. You need to think like a business person, but you cannot be thinking like, what's my ROI on like connecting with Maria this afternoon? It's more like give away what you have. Like, oh my God, you're trying to solve that problem in your studio. I have this great fabricator, or I can totally do that. I've got a table saw. Like just give away, give. And that's the thing that Jennifer was talking about. Like, if you want people to pick up the phone when you call or answer your emails or like your Insta posts, be that person who gives everything away. Just give it all away. Give it all away. It may take 5 months or 5 years, but all that stuff comes back around. People call it karma, good juju, whatever you want. Just give it away, because you have something. You young artists leaving Cornell have something that other people want. It might be different for all of you: energy, time, commitment, whatever. Maybe it's that you're so talented as artists, or a combination of all the above. You have something that other people want. So just give it away, and you'll figure out kind of how to survive financially in the city. It sounds counterintuitive, but it really is true. Just give it away. Lots of love, lots of good energy, just give it away. And that's how you connect with people, and that's how you survive. So try not to get in the get mindset, get in the give mindset.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
wow.
good.
Real inspiration there, Mark. And it's a perfect segue to a question that came in from the students that said, do you have a mentor? Are long-term mentors and mentorships important? And finally, how do you find a mentor? So, Maria, I'll start with you.
Well, that's interesting, because there is a woman here who was my first painting teacher when I was 18. And she is also a Cornell alumni. She got her master's at Cornell, I think, in the 90s. Her name's Christine Heindel, and we've remained incredibly close. I'm 44, and I think Christine just turned 60.
Oh, excuse me, I gotta get my dog.
Like,
Sorry, my dog.
The dog was melting.
Dog is melting. Back too.
So we're quite close, and we communicate a lot and share our work. And a lot of mentors that I have now, I would say I've made friends with since I've been in New York. So, and maybe they're usually like maybe 10 years older than me, and painters, and their success is usually 10 years older than mine too, in a way. And I can constantly, as a peer and as somebody who's looking forward in my art life, ask them questions. And some of like one woman that comes to mind is E.J. Hauser, is a very close friend of mine. And we met 8 or 10 years ago when I drew her studio. I think she was the 4th studio drawing I did. And I spent 9 hours in her studio, and we talked, and we didn't know each other, and really developed a very strong friendship after that. And I consider her a mentor in a way too. That's also a friend. So I think you can kind of like, when you move to New York, if there's somebody that, I mean, it's hard to say like, try to make friends with people, you'll find a mentor. But eventually, and as a woman, I feel like it's very important for me to communicate with other female painters. It's a whole nother world. It really is, for women. And it's important for me to figure out how things work through other successful women. And that's something that I got right to when I moved here. And Diana Cooper too helped me along the way. She knew that it would be harder for me. So, and we're still friends. I think it's sort of like, continuing to, and I have younger artist friends who I'm helping because they're new to the city. So you sort of pass it along. I think you can't really force a mentor, but over the years, you really realize how important it is to have these other artists that you look up to that you can always reach out to and ask advice from.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. Now I'm in the point in my life where I can do the same for someone younger than me.
Yeah.
And Carl Ostendarp, who was my teacher at Cornell, and I are still very close, him and his wife. And I, always reaching out to him with questions too. And those relationships can really, and they're as interested in you as you are in them, really, because I think wherever you are in your career, you're interested in artists that are younger. What are they doing? They know what's up, you know, like in a lot of ways, like it goes
Right.
all the different directions. So yeah, I don't know how to say get a mentor, but I think it just kind of comes to you and your project, you know, like what you end up doing with your art career.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Jennifer?
Actually lately, well, first of all, I have one friend that I met when I was 14 and took photography, and she took photography too. We took it together, and she became a very famous photographer. So we're still friends, and we have really great conversations, which is what is a wonderful thing for all these years, to have this friendship and be able to talk about art. And she introduced me to this woman, Rosalind Solomon, who's a well-known photographer. She's in her 90s now. And Rosalind is wonderful. She has come to my studio. She gives crits. She's looked at my website and whatever. And she'll do this thing, which I really appreciate, which I think maybe other people are more gentle. She'll just say, well, I looked at your website. Do you want to know what I think? And Rosalind does not mince words, but she has helped me immensely, because when you're very close to something, you often don't see whatever. So she'll just say, oh, no, this doesn't really, it's just not, doesn't represent you. It's not really up to what you need to be doing right now. So it's great to have somebody older like that who has had this whole long life of, and she really had struggled a lot in her life for recognition and money, you know, it's all come pretty lately for her. So she has a lot of wonderful, wonderful advice. So I feel very lucky. So it's just through people, meeting people, friends, you know, invite people to your studio.
Yeah.
Invite people over.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah, it comes back. I was going to say, it comes back to that whole theme of communication, and you know, that direct, you know, one-on-one or over a meal, or you know, being able to have that conversation is so vital to kind of helping you develop and reveal, you know, aspects that you may not be seeing. Like you say, if you're too close to the work, you know, you've lost some of that perspective.
Oh, totally. And I made some new friends before COVID too, where I didn't know people too well, but they'd say, well, let's have exchange studio visits. We'll always do that. Always do that.
Yeah, that's great. Mark?
Yeah.
I can't hear Mark.
Yeah.
The videos.
Mark, you still there? I think you might have frozen.
You mean the screen is frozen?
I think, yeah,
We are.
A question.
Yeah,
Yes.
around mentorship. I don't know that I have any personal sense. Oh no.
Kind of going in and out on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Try it one more time, Mark. Oh, I think he's going to restart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Give him a second. So, let's see.
I think someone had a question.
Yeah. Let's see. Mark's back.
I'll go after Mark.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll give him a chance to finish that thought, and then welcome. There we go. Mark, you're back. Great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we're good now.
Oh.
Okay, good. So I'll be brief. I was going to say that, you know, the traditional mentorship. No, am I lost again? Am I frozen again?
You're good now.
I'm going to come back on my phone. I'm going to sign out. I'll come back.
Okay,
I'll come
great,
back.
great. Go ahead. Ask your question. Thanks for jumping in. Just unmute yourself.
Hey, I'm Kirk Henriquez. I'm a M.F.A. Here at Cornell. This fall, I'll be starting my second year. I had a question to those of you who have teaching experience. Can you talk about getting that first teaching job, what that entails? I've heard something about writing a diversity statement. Can we talk about, like, what are the requirements to get that entry teaching job?
Well, I still don't have a teaching job, so I don't know if I could help you. But when I finished Cornell, I thought about going into teaching, and I ended up steering away from it, which I kind of regret now. So I think it's probably a good idea that you're jumping on that right after graduating. But otherwise, I don't know if I'd have any answers for you. Sorry.
Right. And Jennifer, you've done some teaching too, haven't you?
I did a lot, like over 20 years, but I didn't work at a university level. I worked as a teaching artist in museums, mostly the Guggenheim, and I worked for a studio in a school. And the way I tried to stay away from teaching because I didn't want to teach. And because I thought it would take too much of my time and energy and kind of brain power. But I actually ended up really liking it. But I got those kind of connections. I got a lot from it. And I saw it as a way to try out ideas, actually. I tried them out on my students. It was really great. But that's connections too, connections. That was my first job. So I don't know if that's the kind of job you're looking for. You're probably looking for a university job. I know somebody who might be able to help you. I won't mention who they are or what their university is, but if you want to send a resume to me, I could forward it. I know they are often looking for diversity candidates.
Sure, I would love to do that.
Yeah, right. I can't promise you anything, obviously, but.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I can pass it on.
So for Mark's benefit, Mark, do you want to answer that other question you were in the middle of? And then Kirk has a question for you because he's a M.F.A. student at Cornell, was interested in kind of the pathway to teaching. And I know with your ties directly to your work at Parsons, but also your past work at Hunter might also be helpful to Kirk.
Oh, yeah.
My mentorship program response actually ties perfectly with this, and it is while I did teach a little bit of Cornell with some teaching background, and I gave some lectures at some other academic institutions, it's always good to notch your belt when you can. The mentors I was going to mention, one was a chair at a program at Hunter College. And, we kind of met very socially going to, through the Cornell Network. Call that I got was the night before teaching a foundation drawing class at Hunter College. And it was from that person who remains a kind of contact and a mentor, but opportunities present themselves kind of like that sometimes, and you have to make an immediate decision like, oh my God, how do I teach?
Mark, I'm having a hard time to hearing you, Mark.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is academia and theorists and critics in my studio along a whole trajectory of art and the world of design was really important to me. I'd say mentors per se, but they are, shit, I'm going to move. Sorry, I'll check out.
Kirk, we'll definitely connect you with Mark. So we'll, if this kind of breaks down on us, we'll pull you in.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. Fortunately, this isn't our only lifeline. We have multiple channels. We can be found. But thanks for the question. We'll see if Mark can come back. Did you have any other questions that you wanted to throw out? And certainly we've got Sabrina's here. I don't know if she's got a question. Colin's here also. If you guys want to we've got a little bit of time left if you have a question for any of our guests.
I actually do have a question. So a lot of the time art students, I'm in B.F.A, want to reach out to alumni to maybe get informed about their practice or even volunteer as like an intern for them. But unfortunately, the database for alumni at Cornell is not so robust when it comes to art department. Do you have any tips on how to reach out to former students and I guess you guys?
Hopefully this is a conduit to help you get started, Sabrina.
Yeah.
Welcome to, on my website, you'll find my email, and you're welcome to email me with any questions or.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Thank you. I may pass your names to like 80 other students.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, only because when you're an art student, I guess maybe this is a case when you guys were at Cornell, but you get constant emails about architecture internships, and it's like, oh my God, there's another A in AAP, and I would just like to talk to an alumni. But it's great to hear from you guys. Thank you. I will definitely reach out.
Great.
That's wonderful. Sabrina, thank you for your question.
Yeah.
Colin, did you have a question?
Yeah, very early on, it was mentioned, you know, some of the non-art related organizations that you've worked with. I know that, you know, the Wall Street Journal was mentioned, the New York Board of Transportation or New York Transportation Department,
Yeah.
The UN, all these different organizations. I was just wondering if you could talk about how you made connections with some of these other industries, sort of these interdisciplinary projects. I was just very curious about that.
Well, the New York City Department of Transportation has an urban arts program, and I'm not sure how I first became aware of it, but they were really largely responsible for helping me get started in public art. I mean, Socrates was kind of the first. Maybe someone reached out to me or told me about that after I did that exhibition, but they funded, I think, 3 or 4 of my projects. And Emily Colasacco is, like, I think the director now, but it's New York City Department of Transportation Urban Arts Program. And it was started by another woman who had been at the MTA. And in those days, Bloomberg was mayor, and he was writing the checks for it. So that wasn't really widely known, but there was money, and he liked public art, so that's what happened. Yeah. So all of these, and New York City parks, they have a public art, and they have, you can sign up, and you get, they give notices about upcoming things and how you don't really make any money from the parks, but they were really responsible for getting this one piece of mine installed outside of PS1, which was great, of course. So, you know, there are very few people in the public art world, and in a short time you can meet them. In New York City, you can meet them all. Yeah. But I was lucky to get in there at sort of the ground floor when they were just starting. And Emily and I hit it off. So when somebody likes you, this is true of everything, they can make something happen, or they can say, oh no, you have to do X, Y, and Z, or they can just sort of clear the way for it to happen.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, I think you're back. Do you want, if you want to, we were losing you part of the way, but do you want to just restate where you were? I know that was, it was kind of midstream.
I don't know what you heard and what you didn't hear, but I want to piggyback on what Jennifer was just saying. And you know, access to those organizations is hard to break into. That's why you partner up with others. So, and you're an artist, and sometimes it makes sense to partner with another artist, but sometimes it makes sense to partner with an architect or another organization in order to gain, you know, a digital arts person, or, you know, technology person or whatever, kind of like couple up and use your strengths to create a good pitch for a project. Right. And go for the $3,000 projects, because once you get to the $3,000 one, the 5 and the 6 is within reach, right? And you build up. So go for the little ones. $500 is a total win. Go for it. Yeah. Because you're acquiring DOT or NIFA or whatever it is, creative capital, like, and you just keep, you know, snowballing your successes that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. don't look at it as necessarily a way to make money or how much money you're going to make on it. You know, usually in the early days, you're lucky if you break even. And also to partner with somebody who can help you make an effective presentation. Like I knew that I wasn't very good at digital or even animation. And so we would do sort of animated presentations sometimes for these public art things showing the actual space. And I met this guy. It was also through the Creative Capital thing. He happened to work for Jeff Koons and did his stuff. So he worked for me on the side and he made me look really good. And it worked. So that's you got to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the partnering is really critical,
You
especially
can't
in
do
the
it
early
all.
days.
You can't be an expert at everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was going to say, Mark, Kirk was at least asking a little bit about your teaching and the process of kind of connecting. Kirk, did you get enough of an answer on that? Just otherwise, I'll connect you with Mark via email if there's other parts that you want to explore on your question.
I don't want to go over in time. I did ask for Mark's email so I could follow up with him.
Okay.
I shared my email in the chat with everybody.
Okay.
In case I didn't get connected.
Okay. Great, thank you. I know we're just at 1 o'clock. On behalf of the students, any other final questions or thoughts? I want to give you guys the mic or the floor, as they say, to close out, and then we can carry on.
I guess the fact that you guys are graduated and are alive art students makes me hopeful. So that's nice. I just had a quick question. How you teach artists to be capitalists, I guess, because we're not really taught to be businessmen and women with our work, especially in the program. It's kind of this elusive gray area that's never really discussed. And so you wonder how you're funded or how you have the confidence or means to sell your work. And I just wanted to know if you had any tips in change, not so much the means you did it, but the mentality shift and that took to start selling or putting yourself out there.
I think it takes a great deal of confidence, and also there are no guarantees. So it's certainly not, no matter how you present yourself, there's no promise that you'll have success. But if you keep working really hard at it, that's when success comes. And I understand that. I feel you on that elusiveness when you're in school, because you're graduating and you want to know how the hell this is all going to work out for you. But honestly, I still don't know, you know, in some ways, but I do know that I'm a hard worker, I'm dedicated, and I'm constantly connecting with other artists. And
I agree.
Participating in my community.
Well, you know, I totally agree with what you just said, but to be honest, I'm going to completely disagree with the confidence thing. Because,
Good for you.
because you do not need to have any confidence, and you should always, as an artist, be questioning and scratching your head and presenting maybe that, you know, kind of putting work out there, but always like, you know, critically looking at your work, right? And part of that is confidence in getting the work out, but part of it is total self-doubt. And I am, you know, a successful person who's racked with self-doubt, you know, and the trick is to not feel like you have to be confident, but to still put one foot in front of the other, because it doesn't matter. It does not matter. You just got to keep going. It's a survival game. There are a lot of people that come out of college, make a big splash for 2 or 3 years, and they're gone, and they didn't make it, and you did, because you're going to play the game, and you're dedicated, and you're going to stick around, and you're going to learn, and just keep getting uncomfortable. Get out there and get uncomfortable.
And I
So
think
confidence,
say confidence.
Something you fake.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say. Fake it. If you don't feel it, fake it.
Because nobody's going to feel it. Fake it. But you need to be able to keep going if you don't have success. And I'm still waiting for that success.
Yeah,
so
you have. I agree.
My confidence till the day I die.
I agree with Mark that you have to keep going. It is a survival. it's the last man standing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sometime after a while, they go, oh yeah, she's been around for 40 years. Oh, maybe we should look at that. Oh, she really means it. She really means it. Let's take her seriously, or at least look at it. The only thing I would say it would help you if you do have your little elevator pitch, because you can memorize that, and then you don't have to be confident. You don't have to get all blah, 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 blah. You just kind of say your thing, right? Fake your thing and practice it. That's what they do to you in Creative Capital. They get you to practice it, so you sound like you are confident, even if you're not.
That's well said.
Very good.
Yeah. Zoe, I know you just joined us, or maybe you were in the background, but do you have a question before we wrap up?
Hi. Well, I was just, I guess, interested in hearing from Mark a bit more about his robotics research. I guess this is kind of like sort of on the side, a little bit of an unrelated question, but I guess just wondering how he got into it and going from art into robotics, sort of how he transitioned into that.
Yeah, sure. Cool, thanks. I mean, we don't have as much time as we need for me to really kind of give you the full picture, and I'm happy to follow up with anybody who does want to follow up on that. But the answer is, as an artist, I've been a maker. And the people who know me as an artist, when they heard I was doing robotics, were like, this doesn't make any sense. You're not about automation. You're like an incredible crafts person. Why are you automating anything? And the reason is because there are a lot of people who know technology that don't know how to make anything. Right. And so it's a really good, it's basically a part. This is actually emblematic of the notion of partnership, right? Because I could add something to that intellectual arena because I did know how to make things, and I did know how to think about the forms that those things took, or the combinations of materials, et cetera. So long story short, though, you know, I came to technology through the production facilities at Pratt Institute. I grew those production, you know, it was a wood shop, I had a metal shop, I had a casting facility, then laser cutters, then 3D printers, then CNC mills, then robots. And then I started, we have New York City's largest industrial robot in Brooklyn, in the Navy Yard. So it just built up. It's just building up, building up, building up. And it's always a combination of creativity and design. So we have a lot of artists come in, and I extend that invitation to everybody on this call. I would love to have you all as a group come check it out. I've had, you know, Whitney artists in there. I've had international artists in there. I've had dancers from India in there. I've had so many really cool people come in who want to interrogate this relationship between humanity and technology. So I really would love to continue this conversation with all of you, any of you.
That's great. Mark, thank you. That's really wonderful. We'll definitely take you up on that and expand the audience, because we would love to celebrate what you're doing and really, like you say, interrogate it and engage in what you're doing.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, folks, I know we are over time, and I promise I'll get you back to the rest of your day, but want to thank Maria and Jennifer and Mark for their time, and certainly to the students for coming and joining us, and especially to Kendra and Brooke and Marjorie for all you're doing. And Marjorie, I don't know if you want to put your slides up or put them into another way that people can see them, but I think that's the last piece of today that I just wanted to not lose track of. She's put some wonderful information together for the students that we could certainly circulate. Since we've got you already registered in the forum, we can definitely send that on to you if that's easier.
Yeah, I can definitely send the PDF of the slide deck to everybody that registered. So I can definitely do that, Bob.
That'd be great. Yeah. And then we can bring this to a close and thank everyone again for your time, and really inspiring, fabulously engaging, and I deeply appreciate all the contributions to making this possible today. So Marjorie, I'll pass it back to you.